Hey guys, here with a quick Catweaving guide for Guardian Druids in patch 7.1.5. Now in this guide I'm going to go over the whole setup, so your talents, and then your stat priority, and then just go over the rotation and concepts of kind of how to apply it in a real situation, as well as a demonstration. Now we'll start by going over what Catweaving is, and it's just a term that refers to using Feral Affinity, that's a level 45 talent, to do more DPS by kind of weaving in these extra abilities that you gain by selecting this talent. And it's kind of fun and a fun way to increase your DPS as a tank. One, when you're not actually tanking, because obviously you can't really go out of bear form when you are actively tanking, or you'll probably die. But it is fun, and you will do more than you would normally. You won't be quite like a full DPS or anything, but it is a cool way to kind of play around as a Guardian Druid. So you can kind of see, and we'll start with the talents here. You can see the kind of setup that I generally recommend. First, 15 brambles you want for extra damage when you're being attacked, and also turns boxing into kind of a mini DPS cooldown because it does a little bit of extra damage. The other two have nothing to do with damage, so in order to get more damage out of it, brambles is really the only talent here. Level 30 doesn't really matter what you pick. 45, you definitely need Feral Affinity to Catweave. Level 60 doesn't matter what you need or what you choose. Level 75, I recommend Galactic Guardian mostly. The consistent extra Moonfire damage and procs is really nice. And Incarnation would be the other option, but you basically get more Mangles, which is good because Mangle hits really hard. But a lot of times you're switching in between Bear form and Cat form, so you don't get full value on this because there will be a portion of time during Incarnation in which you want to switch out of Bear form, so you'll be losing that kind of value during that time. So that's why I generally recommend Galactic Guardian. And at level 90, technically Survival of the Fittest will give you a little bit more damage because it makes your bark skin shorter, a shorter cooldown. So it happens more often and thus you get more brambles usage. But it's not a huge deal if you want to take Guardian Balloon to be more viable as a tank when you're not catweaving. That is also a good way to go. Now level 100, generally I recommend Rend and Tear, most especially if you have the legendary legs. And even if not though, I do recommend it most of the time. Pulverize can be a little weird because you're giving up some of your thrash stacks, just that extra dot damage. And even though it does a lot of damage, you also don't get the extra damage overall in bear form, so all the cat bleeds ticking, all of your bear bleeds ticking, and just your bear damage is really nice. Again, especially with the legs, you definitely want Rend and Tear, and even without, you could definitely go with this. But you can mess around with Pulverize if you want to kind of add a different dimension to it. But generally, I would recommend Rend and Tear. As far as stat priority goes, you're going to want Versatility first, then Crits, then Haste, and then Mastery, just for Catweaving DPS. Of course, you can change that if you want to also be like more survivable as a tank, but versatility is good for both anyway, so at least if you focus on that, you'll be getting both damage and damage reduction quite nicely, and then go from there. You also do want to have DPS trinkets if you can, so pretty much whatever's good for like an agility class, melee class like Feral, will probably do you pretty well. So make sure you're using DPS trinkets as well, and do of course have an agility flask on, the 7th demon flask, as well as some sort of DPS pots, preferably Old War, especially on shorter fights, but Prolonged Power can work as well. So now let's talk about the actual rotation. I'm going to start with a couple concepts that are pretty important. First is in cat form you tend to do more damage, just the stuff that you do there does more damage overall. So you do want to spend as much time as possible DPSing in cat form when you're not actually tanking. So the majority of that is keeping up your 2 bleeds. So you've got Rake, and then you've got Rip. And Rip you always want to use at 5 combo points. You want to max Rip every time, just more damage. And then you build combo points with Shred outside of Rake. Now Ferocious Bite, as a finishing move, you can use if you have a lot of extra energy, so a lot of haste, giving you lots of extra energy, or once you're below 25% health on the target, because sub 25% health, it will actually refresh your Rip, so that you don't actually ever have to cast Rip again, which is cool, just some extra free damage. So at that point you can, but never use Ferocious Bite if it's going to cause you to let Rake or Rip fall off the target for an extended period of time, because you should be able to keep them up most of the time. Now once you've lost all your energy in cat form, so you've kind of drained your energy, you don't really want to sit around and wait for it to come back up. go ahead and switch to bear form. And then at that point, you'll be following this DPS priority, Mangle being your top, and then getting your Thrash stacks up, especially if you're using Rend and Tear, getting those up to maximum stacks, so either 3 by default, or 5 with the legendary legs. And at that point, your next priority DPS-wise is to use Moonfire with Galactic Guardian procs only, and then swipe is like your last. If there's literally nothing else to do in bear form and you're not ready to go back into cat form yet, then you could swipe, and you always weave in Maul. Just spam Maul as much as you can because it's off the global cooldown. Once you have maximum stacks for Thrash and you're just refreshing Thrash, then it falls behind Galactic Guardian Moonfires in priority because they actually do more damage up front. But it's still more important than Swipe because it still does more up front than Swipe does. So again, that's Mangle, Thrash to maximum stacks, and then Moonfire with Galactic Guardian procs, and then Thrash if you're already at maximum stacks, just kind of refreshing it, and then Swipe. And of course Maul all the time. And that's pretty much what you do in bear form, and then when you're ready, you go back to cat form, and then do the same thing, get your bleeds up, and then go back to bear form when you're out of energy, and so on. Now as far as using your cooldowns, it's pretty simple. Barkskin just pretty much on cooldown. You can line it up with Rage of the Sleeper at the very beginning, but after that it's not worth waiting because Rage of the Sleeper has a slightly longer cooldown, like about 30 seconds baseline, than Barkskin once you have some of those artifact traits, and in this case I have Survival of the Fittest as well. In terms of using Rage of the Sleeper, it's important that your cat bleeds stay active the entire duration, so make sure you have over 10 seconds at least, preferably a little bit more, on Rake and Rip left before you switch back to bear form and use Rage of the Sleeper, and then stay in bear form for the full 10 seconds to make sure you get all that extra bonus damage. So that's pretty much how the DPS goes. For Catweaving, now, realistically, you won't be able to maximize your Catweaving DPS unless you already have 2 other tanks and you're just messing around or something, because you have to tank. And you can't, again, switch out of bear form when you're tanking, so you will let your bleeds drop off sometimes. But this is realistically something you can do when you're not tanking. Just apply cat bleeds as much as possible when you're not tanking, and then when you have to tank, just stay in bear form and do the best you can there. So now I'll go ahead and demonstrate for you guys. Now, you will be able to follow along with what spells I'm casting on the left-hand side here. It'll show what I've just cast. And as far as the opener goes, stay in stealth, or start in stealth. Use Rake for that extra 100% damage, and then Shred to build as many combo points as you can. Now, if you can actually get to 5 combo points, so Rake and then 3 Shreds and then Rake again, to get longer duration, to make sure you have enough time left on your Rake for Rage of the Sleeper, go ahead and do that right away. And then, Rip at 5 combo points, switch to bear form, Rage of the Sleeper, cooldowns, whatever. And then go off and do your bear rotation. If not, then don't be afraid to use as many combo points as you can, or build as many combo points as you can. Use all your energy, switch to bear form briefly, maybe get like a Mangle and a Thrash in or something, and then go back to cat form, build up the bleeds, get 5 combo points, make sure you've reapplied your Rake, and then use all your energy, and then switch back, Rage of the Sleeper, Barkskin, and then do your DPS rotation. So we'll start here, and I'll show you. So from stealth, we're going to Rake, and then Shred as much as we can, and then back to bear form. I'll Maul, Mangle, Thrash, switch back to cat form. I'll Rake here, Rip, and I have a little energy, so I'll use a couple of Shreds, switch back to bear form, Rage of the Sleeper, Barkskin, cooldowns, Maul, Mangle, building up those Thrash stacks, and then the procs Moonfire. And I'll stay here as long as Rage of the Sleeper is up, and I'll switch back to cat form, because I see Rake is coming off cooldown, so I'll reapply that, and get a couple in here and reapply Rip as well, then go back to bear form, do Mangle, build up some more Thrash, Mangle again, then Moonfire with the proc, and at this point I see Rake is coming off pretty soon, and it's been a while, so I'll go ahead and get into cat form, reapply Rake, use as much as I can, Shreds as I can, until I'm out of energy, and then there I probably should have reapplied Thrash first, because now I'm at 5 stacks, which is my maximum, and now I'll go back to cat form, because I see that I'm getting low on both Rake and Rip, so I'll go ahead and reapply those, and then do one more Shred, because I have enough energy, back to bear form. Following that rotation, make sure your Thrash stacks don't fall off. Pretty important with Rend and Tear. And then after a few seconds, we can go back to cat form. Barkskin's up, so I'll Shred, Rake to reapply that, use some energy. And I got some time left on Rip, so I won't use that quite yet. At this point, I'll switch back, get my Rip going. Maybe another Shred, reapply Rake, back to bear form. Mangle, proc to Moonfire, always mulling in between, proc to Moonfire again, mull, and at this point again, we've got some time in cat form, so we can shred a few times, get rake up, and might as well reapply the rip here, switch back to bear form, and this time we have enough time on both of our dots, so I went ahead and Rage of the Sleeper since I'm already in bear form, and both dots were already good to go with more than 10 seconds left, so stay in bear form for this full duration, and then switch back, and get my rake up since it's falling off, build as much as I can, combo point wise, use the energy, and this is pretty much it, so you just keep this going the whole time. Now I'll switch back to cat because I see that my rip is falling off, I'll reapply rake as well, rip, shred again, back to bear form, and you just keep going like that, keeping up this priority, and just kind of using your cooldowns as they come up, and just prep, of course, for Rage of the Sleeper, back to cat form, shreds, reapply rake, maybe one more shred, switch back. I could have reapplied rip there, and I probably will just about now, make sure it doesn't fall off, so I probably should have done that, but since we're back in cat form, let's use as much energy as we can, and then back to bear form, and so on and so forth, and you could have raked there and done things like that. So that's kind of the gist of catweaving, just making sure you're watching timers, having indicators like with weak ores or something, which I haven't set up for this, but that can really help, so you have accurate timers, you can always see when things are coming off cooldown, and when things are falling off debuff wise, so you never let your bleeds fall, and you just kind of handle that. Now as far as using pots, of course, you would pre-pot on the opener there, and then use a second pot, most likely when you have Rage of the Sleeper up for the second time. And you just do that as much as possible. Now, like I said before, it's not realistic to be able to do that unless your group is okay with bringing kind of like a subpar DPS, because you're going to be messing around, right? But if you have to tank, just stay in bear form, do as much damage in bear form as you can, while staying alive, of course. And then as soon as the other tank taunts off or something, or you don't have to actively tank, then switch to cat form, get those bleeds going, that rake, that rip, and so on. And obviously I wasn't able to use Ferocious Bite because I don't have very much energy regen, but I would start using that sub 25% just to refresh rip instead of reapplying it manually. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys liked it, feel free to hit it with a like. If you have any questions or comments about it, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. You can always catch me live on my stream at twitch.tv, link in the description below. And if you want to know when I post more content like this or just new videos in general, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Cheers.